Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, builders, technical and non-technical alike. We are so thrilled to have you to the first ever episode of the Technical Agents of Change. I'm Scott Meyer, co-founder of Chipp. Joining us is the man, the myth, the legend, the gremlin from Greenville, the man who puts the P in CTPO. It is Hunter Hodnett. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. What an intro. How are you, sir?
It's I have to because there's big things coming. You are now expanding the world, expecting a baby any day. So tell us how you're feeling bringing another builder into the world.
Yeah, I assume you're talking all about Chip and this startup baby that we're birthing and, AI native development. Yeah, it's kind of cool because, doing two things at once, obviously building a family and building a startup. And both of those things are related in surprisingly unexpected ways. So, yeah, just drink it
It's
from the fire hose, submit it to the process.
I know, and it's amazing. We wanted to do this as we kick off 2026. We have so many conversations about the future of building, the future of companies, and we're building this company that we think is going to be a unicorn with a team of three. And I think it's kind of fun to show people what that looks like. And so, tell us just first off, like how how things have changed in company building, and then I'm really curious to ask you about your role. So, we're a small team. How has that changed even since Chip started 2 years ago till today?
Well, you're coding. That's the most terrifying
That
aspect
is
of
the
it. You're
scariest thing
pushing
ever.
PRs, right? So you're
I'm
think
actually
about your
bugging you to approve my PRs.
yeah, you're like and they actually I'm going through the code and I'm like, surely this is garbage. And it's good code. I had that surprise last night when you posted like four PRs and I was like, oh my gosh, every single one of these is correct. Um, so I think that's probably the biggest change from like when we started to now is that like everyone is a coder. Versus
Yeah.
previously, if you're the founder of a startup, you were really in charge of just stewarding assets, like stewarding cash that you would give to other people to build the product for you. Whereas now the way companies are built is like the iteration loop has compressed so much that you actually are empowered as the founder of a startup, as like a product owner, to be the builder yourself versus having to delegate
Yeah.
that responsibility.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I put this random name, on this series that we're hoping to start of like agents of change. Like I really think there's been a change the last couple months, even that everyone can now create change, right? Instead of like asking other people to make the change for you, like you can take agency and ownership of being that change agent. Um, and I know one part that kind of reflects on is product. And so you were quite passionate a few months ago of changing your job title. So tell us a little bit about why and what you changed it to and why you think this is maybe the future of technical founders.
Yeah, job security. It's the rats fleeing the ship.
Mm.
So rapidly watching my own position as a software engineer get automated. But more specifically, software engineers most often are the people looking at the product the most, right? Because your job is to build the product. So day in, day out, you're often, the one who is like most in the weeds in the product itself. And so any really, really good builder is going to care very deeply about the product. And this may be controversial unless you're like an agency or a vendor, right? That's kind of more of like, hey, I just want to, get my tickets across the board and bill my hours and be done. But if you're like a
Yeah.
full-time employee or a full-time builder in a startup, you care very, very deeply for the product. And so that had been the case for me for my entire career. But with the advent of AI, now it has accelerated the how should I put this? It it has made product intuition a much more valuable skill than it used to be. And if you can couple that with the rapid iteration velocity of understanding how software works, you are then enabled to build very, very quickly. You're able to build a product very, very quickly. And I forget who said this, but startups live and die by their, engineering and product velocity. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that prompted my move into that space.
Yeah. So the current title, CPTO, and so Chief Product and Technical Officer. And I think one thing that I've found, I mean, I just read an article about this as well, is like startups and companies will be differentiated by their opinions, right? Like if anybody can build
Mhm.
anything, you have to start making decisions of like how things should look, what should or should not be included. I'm curious how you think about that from like the CP, like the P side of making these decisions. Cause maybe before you, like you said, filled out tickets and now you're doing
Yeah.
something different, like stepping back almost a level or up a level. I'm not sure which direction.
Yeah. I think with what's happening in AI right now, there is privileged information to be gained from being in the trenches using it all the time.
Hmm.
And so that was what I really noticed right when this began. Like when you and I met, at the first startup we were at, there was this privileged information with that the engineering team was privy to just by being in the trenches building with this stuff all the time. And that specific insight was um, deriving structured data from unstructured data. So taking, a random blob of text and turning it into JSON, right? That was a really key insight that became very, very apparent very early on that was not obvious to the rest of the industry. And Peter Thiel famously would ask founders like, what is one, kind of contrarian opinion that you have about the world or something like that? And so getting that insight very, very early on, um, I was like, oh my gosh, I see exactly where I have very strong conviction regarding where I think the industry is going and what products I think are going to succeed given this new tech, revolution in technology. And so that's where my product insight comes in of like, I made an early push for us, as you're very well aware. I made an early push for us to go horizontal, right? Which was like kind of a very counterintuitive thing. Um, and then also, to do white label, push us in the white label direction, and then, really move us towards um, AI agents. You made the push really hard for MCP, which was like very, very, which I originally was like very much like, this is just nonsense. And then I think you probably messaged me like 4 times and was like, can we take another look at MCP? I'm pretty sure it's like where all this is going. Um, so it's kind of, some things I got correct and some things I got wrong. But just being in the trenches with this stuff very early that's where a lot of the product insights come from.
Yeah. Well, tell me, like, you as the leader are, it's easy to change your title, become CPTO. What happens for larger companies? We have the advantage of being small. We can just pivot and change things. But if I'm at a company right now with, 5 to 10 developers or something like that, is everyone adding the P into their job title and working on product? Is one person leading that or volunteering to lead it? Or how do you kind of see this changing?
Yeah. So I think everyone is empowered to be a builder, right? But everybody has to be on the same page regarding vision. I think if you have um, differing visions of what the company is or what the product is, you're just going to go in opposite directions quicker,
Mm.
right? So everybody's going to be on the same page, but I think everyone is a builder. There was a really nice Venn diagram that showed like a circle for designers, circle for engineers, and a circle for product people. And it showed AI as like bringing those circles closer together and the common ground, common responsibilities between those
Hmm.
is getting much larger. I think that's what's happening. So you see a lot more engineers also, being a little bit more autonomous with product decisions. You see product managers like doing coding. You'll see both product managers and engineers kind of vibing design, but then you'll also see designers starting to write more code and make more product decisions. But there's still, expertise. Like I still approve all of your PRs and I like check them and I'm like, okay, is this correct? And sometimes we go back and forth. So I think for people in a big company, it's moving much more in a direction of everyone becoming much more of a generalist. And it is becoming much, much more important to have a shared understanding of what the mission is, what the product is, and who your ideal customer is, and what you're building for them.
Yeah. And you've been a teacher for a long time, helped out at, boot camps. We hired a developer straight out of a boot camp. I'm curious in this age of like anyone being able to build stuff, what does mentorship look like when you're a senior developer like you and you have someone like me or Val on our team? Like, how can you help them when you're not necessarily telling them what to type, right? Like, there's something else you're helping them kind of envision.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is allowing people to see how you interact with AI. I think that's really where a lot of the mentorship is. One of the first projects that you and I connected on again early on at our first startup was this idea of a multiplayer chat with AI. And I remember my former boss, Sujal, who I'm also still in contact. Shout out Sujal if you're watching this. I watched him interact with AI via that multiplayer Slack thing, and I couldn't figure out how to get the AI to continue the conversation whenever it like broke off in the middle of the sentence. And I saw Sujal type continue, and I was like, oh, all I have to do is say continue to the AI. But without that multiplayer experience, I wouldn't have known that. And so the way I think of mentorship now, and the way, we had an MCP, knowledge session, little jam session a little while ago where I walked you and Val through the different ways in which I use the MCP tools that I've created for us. I think that really seeing how someone is using AI, I think is really prime. Video tutorials, really seeing it in action versus previously, for classic software engineering um, education, a lot of it was like reading a manual and doing something yourself in an exercise, reading more of the manual. Like it was a very, very text heavy experience. Whereas now it's a lot of like practical, mentorship occurs mostly in the world of like practical hands-on, experience.
Yeah. And like what I'm hearing is there's a move from scholarship to apprenticeship, right? Like
Yeah.
instead of going through a book, I'm going to go build the thing and learn by building it. And I love this because we know the best way to learn is not linear, like chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's I want to do this thing. Like I want to go skiing and I'm going to figure out how to ski however I need to get to that goal of like going down the hill, right? Or like
Yeah.
I want to build on our product, like I want to build a voice agent. And so I'm going to figure out which documentation, which tools to use. And along the way, I'm going to pick up how to use an MCP server. I'm going to pick up how to commit. I'm going to learn these things that I need when I need them, which is usually the best way to learn is like learn in the moment, right?
Yeah. We're in very much a permissionless world, right? Where if you're someone who just wants to like do stuff, you're empowered to do it. My wife would love that. She tells me I'm a rebel all the time. She would do all these like personality assessments for business coaching. And I'm very much someone, anybody who knows me knows like, oh yeah, Hunter just kind of goes off and does what he wants.
Yeah.
But it's very much like a permissionless world that we're moving into where you are very much empowered to do things and there's much less gatekeeping. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the allegations that I've seen people throw at the whole Gen AI movement is like people are, trying to gatekeep um, within, what's going on in terms of like where the value is accruing and stuff like that. And I think it's the exact opposite of like now everyone is really empowered to build, to be a builder. Like if there's something that you've thought of that you thought would be cool that you think people would value, you are empowered to build that. And I think that's a very cool thing.
And one of the ways that you're unlocking that for us and for me and other people are as well is something you've talked about a couple of times now. So like what model context protocol or an MCP. So I literally right before this call was upgrading users and changing things through an
Terrifyingly
MCP
enough,
server.
yeah, I was watching that.
And I'm just like, hey, do this. And it does it. So tell us what an MCP is, what an MCP server is, and like why maybe you were resistant to it at first and what's changed since then.
Yeah, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. I don't actually like the name. I don't think it tells you anything about what it actually does. So don't get hung up on the name if you're hearing this and you think that sounds weird. It's just it's a bad name. Um, it is a collection of tools for an AI to use. It is a server. So for my software engineering nerds out there, it's just like an API server with a different protocol on top. It actually does have this JSON RPC protocol that is different from traditional. I believe it's different from, the way you would traditionally interact with an API. Um, but the AI can call a tools/list endpoint for a given MCP server. And there's typically one MCP server for a given suite of tools. For example, Stripe has an MCP server. We're launching a Chipp MCP server, so you can interact with your create Chipp chats via MCP. What are some other ones? Sentry is a very, very valuable MCP server that we use
Yeah,
to
I use it for
action
SEO with Ahrefs. So I'm doing
SEO.
like keyword
Yeah.
research, creating pages. Yeah.
So think about one MCP server for like one product, right? Or
Mhm.
for one SaaS platform you might use. And the AI, when you start a session, say like a Claude Code session, it can call the tools/list endpoint to get a list of the tools that are available to it. And then as it deems necessary in the conversation, can call an appropriate tool to fetch necessary information. For example, I'm like, hey, we're getting reports of errors in production that have, that are in this part of the product. Can you check Sentry to see what the error details are? And it'll know to call the, search tool in Sentry to actually search through errors. The reason when this first came out, I was like, okay, why wouldn't I just call an API, right? Why wouldn't I take all the existing API documentation that's already on the internet, and why wouldn't I just feed that into my AI agent, right? The reason that's a bad idea is because you are now in charge of updating anytime the API changes, you have to then refresh all the tools that you have connected to your AI agent. So it can go stale pretty quickly. The big power of MCP is that whoever is providing those tools, whoever has published those tools, they maintain that MCP server and they are constantly updating it, right? And you want to have, we have a lot of MCP tools that we use. And it would be such a pain to have to, it's like, oh my gosh, they updated this API endpoint. Now I have to go and refresh every single integration in all my AI tools, versus with MCP, they just automatically update it. It's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And now there is starting to be a network effect of broad adoption in the industry. So you're seeing a lot of people host remote MCP servers for their products. So it's been very, very powerful. I was tremendously wrong on that one.
That's okay. I think about it like, if I write a list of restaurants and when they're open, and then I have to go check if their opening hours change versus going to Google and searching like,
Yeah.
are they open right now? Right. And it's like with MCP, I
Yep.
just do it in the moment. It's kind of like that learning on demand. Like I can go call the tool, and however, if it exists at that moment and it works, like I go get it. Right.
Exactly. It's so powerful because then you just connect it live into all these other systems. And, every publisher of an MCP server is responsible for maintaining that MCP server, and you can just have access to it. It's really powerful.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, we're going to keep having these conversations because I think one thing I really admire and love about working with you is you're really reimagining what a technical team looks like and willing to take in the tired, the hungry, the poor like me. I'm so proud of just having a GitHub with green dots on it. I just feel so cool. And like you said, having opinions now is a superpower. And I feel like I have lots of
Oh,
opinions
yeah.
on what things should look like. And now I can get it at least close enough where you can review it and improve it. But I think other people should be doing this. So just to close, like, what are you seeing generally? Like, to me, it feels like, although AI is probably most powerful for developers, I see the most pushback from developers. So like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's a whole. I mean, we could have an hour-long
We'll do the next
conversation on
episode,
that
but give us a
on that
tease of
alone.
like,
So people are empowered to write their own software, right? So the people who traditionally would have been purchasers of software, are now they actually never were able to purchase software. There was capital. You previously had to have privileged access to capital in order to raise money to hire software engineers and pay them these crazy salaries to build software. And so there are people now who are able to build software who previously they would have been, because of maybe lack of access to capital, or they're just not born into a wealthy family, or any of these kinds of things, would never have had access to the capital required to build a software product. Those people are now building things because they can get, a $200 a month max plan, which is, again, a lot of money to a lot of people, but it's not, it's not $150,000 to pay a development agency to build
Yeah.
a
Yep.
piece of software. Those people are building now, and software engineers are angry about it because software engineers are used to this world in which we're paid these crazy high salaries. And, if somebody can't afford us, we're like, well, it's your fault. Go raise money. Right. Like, and that is all collapsing very, very quickly. So it's causing controversy in the software engineering community. You'll see me get attacked by LinkedIn. I poke the ant's nest sometimes, but I get attacked by LinkedIn mobs of like engineers being like, no, it's completely wrong. This isn't happening. But meanwhile, we're seeing people who, are capital or previously capital constrained, maybe not inside of a, you know, uh, region that typically has access to capital. Think about Silicon Valley, New York, all these urban hubs that or where people usually go to build big, ambitious things. Now you're seeing, the mom and pop shop down the street all of a sudden being able to build software. I think
Yep.
that is a wonderful thing. It is very exciting. So much software is getting built, and I think we're going to see so many amazing products
Yeah.
fill the world. And I think it's an awesome.
I mean, you hear this a lot online, but the Jevons paradox of like when it's cheap and easy to build software, you start to find places that we never even considered building software for, right?
Right.
So maybe
Exactly.
your personal
Yep.
finance, you would just use a spreadsheet and now you could actually build your own software tool and you would never have even
Exactly.
considered hiring someone because it wasn't worth it. And now you could do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I know we're over, but I do want to give a cool data point
oh,
on this
please.
one. I live in Greer, South Carolina, and we were trying to get just some help around the house. We were trying to see if we could like get some meals booked because we're about to have a baby. And so there's actually a local chef that vibe coded a platform that connects someone with local chefs in their area that just operate out of their homes, and we'll connect you with them to kind of do on demand, cooking things for like a short period of time, and created a retirement fund for all these local chefs that previously would not have had any access to any kind of like retirement system because it's just kind of a feast or famine kind of an industry. And he vibe coded this entire platform to help chefs get connected with people who need, you know, just catered food for a short period of time. And, really is helping, local chefs secure their financial future, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
So there's like stuff like that that's starting to happen. And I went and got coffee with this guy and was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you vibe coded this entire platform that's like doing this thing. But stuff like, I mean, that's just one drop in the bucket, right? Like that story has replicated itself across so many other places.
That's so fun. Well, we're going to have time with Hunter in February. We're actually going to do a cohort, a course where you can come learn to build, kind of share ideas of what the future of development looks like. And we're going to be sharing more details about that. But you can go to the agentsofchange.ai. You can watch Hunter on LinkedIn. He'll talk about it. But I think it's really important to, like you said, see how other people are building. And so not just learning from Hunter, but bringing in guest speakers who will show their stacks, how they build. And I think for a lot of people, reimagining what your tech team, your dev team can look like is going to be incredibly valuable in 2026. So I look forward to a lot more conversations on camera. We do a lot of them off camera. But most importantly, look forward to meeting the new baby. And I'm glad that
Yes.
I can keep developing while you're gone and keep
I know
this
you're going to be
software
holding down
train
the fort.
running.
Everyone out there, Scott is keeping the lights on, and Chipp, send all tickets his way.
Exactly. I'm here to help. Great to see you, Hunter. We'll see you
Good
next
to see
time.
you, man.